Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for coming back. But for everyone out there who's new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda in the fridge. Today, I am joined by my friend, Jeff Fieldhouse. He is a stand-up comedian and a fellow podcast host. His show is the Babyface Assassin Podcast. If it sounds familiar, maybe that's because I was a guest on his show sometime last year, I think. I don't remember the exact date. Doesn't really matter. But Jeff is a killer guy, a lot of fun to talk to, and I think you're going to enjoy today's conversation. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to shut the hell up so we can get into my conversation with my friend, Jeff Fieldhouse. Enjoy. I feel like nobody cares about the intro. People are just here because they have nothing else better to listen to, or they know you.
Yeah.
That's the dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's listening to this for me right now. So...
Well, and
Jeff,
I think the intro is kind of just a highway billboard where you're hoping people will see, but it's one we're looking at our phones.
Yeah. It's like, subscribe to my Patreon. This is Jeff. That's the intro.
How are you, man? Fuck yeah. Well, no, I feel like intros are really it's funny you say that. The past 5 to 10 episodes of my podcast, I stopped doing with the person hey, welcome to this episode. And I'll just start after the intro, I'll have a little preview and then it will just jump right into the conversation.
Yeah.
Like you said, I feel like I'm wasting time. People are there and do they really want to sit through what the title already says, who the person is?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
I don't know. So Jeff Fieldhouse of the Babyface Assassin Podcast.
Yes, sir.
And of Jeff Fieldhouse, the stand-up comedian and human being on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I like your setup.
Thank you for being here. So, why did you hit me up, of all people on planet Earth, to come on my podcast? What's the goal today? What do we want to talk about? Or is it just to hang out?
Well, that's the thing. I was talking to my significant other, Danielle, and the thing I like about your podcast, and I watched the Britney one last, is you guys talked all about roller coasters, and I like Britney's music, so I went into it before knowing that. Once I saw it was all about roller coasters, I was like, fuck yes, because that's one of my favorite things with podcasts like that. I feel like on so many podcasts when an artist goes on, they either want to tell a specific story or get something out of it, but I was telling Danielle, I was like, I like how his podcast is kind of off the wall. She's like, what do you think you're going to talk about? And I was like, that's kind of cool. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And I think that's a genuine conversation. And when I had you on the podcast, we had a really cool conversation. You were a nice guy. And whenever you left, it's when you meet artists, it's it shows you like their vibe and it's I'll see you when I see you. So even though podcast now, it kind of stinks, but it's a nice way to get a hang in, especially during quarantine. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to talk.
Yeah. I feel like the things tend to go smoother. At least I'm happier doing a podcast that's about nothing. Because if I don't know, sometimes last week's episode was with my friend Jerry Mulligan, and we got real in the weeds about some deep stuff regarding how local music scenes work socially and politically, and what is good ethics and good manners and good practices, and it's tight to have those conversations. I think a lot of people got some good value out of that conversation. And if you're one of those people, hey, hallelujah. But I'm also my life all the time is having those thoughts.
Yeah.
So if I can have an hour or two to hang out with my friend Brittany and just talk about roller coasters, I'm this is more valuable for me personally, because I am just so exhausted because my brain is 24/7 on all the other stuff.
Definitely.
But also, if the goal of my podcast is to help other artists and share stories so people can hopefully take something and apply it to their lives to make things easier, then you got to have the serious conversations. But it's also really important, I think, to let artists and creatives know that it's okay to do nothing.
Yeah.
It's okay to fuck off and give time to yourself.
Yeah,
because like
the good old Seinfeld method. Like,
okay,
you want to have a podcast about nothing, buddy. As soon as you said that, I started like, ba-ding, ba-ding, ba-ding. I was like, hell yeah, dude. But no, I think that's the one thing where anytime you make art, like I think anytime my best stand-up jokes that I like was trying the least hard and I just thought were kind of funny, those hit the hardest with the crowd. Same with episodes where I would plan so hard about certain questions, those ones would barely get any views. And the episodes that kind of went off like conversations end up getting the most. So I feel like the more that you just kind of try to make something for yourself and what you're doing, I feel like that's the best chance that people are going to like see that you're interested. Because I feel like there's such a like fine thing with people seeing if you're trying to be like a host and you're just like kind of send the conversation somewhere. Because a lot of time I will listen to podcasts like while I'm doing dishes or while I'm like working out. I'll be doing other shit. So I like the tennis conversation of everything. I don't like to have to go back and see if I missed a gem while I'm trying to listen to that. But when I am ready for those episodes, I'll dive in. So no, I think what you're doing is sick because you're like breaking that layer of like what you think what other people want. You're doing exactly what Brian wants. You know? Yeah,
I think it's really important. And, you know, as a fellow podcaster, podcast host, podcastee, whatever, you've been doing the show now for a while. You broke 100 episodes, correct? So that's quite a commitment. Congratulations on that. Are you somebody that always reaches out to guests, or do you have a lot of people reach out to you as well?
See, the thing that I'm horrible with is it's both. Like I have a set lineup where each month I said who are like 4 or 5 people that I keep seeing popping up on my friends' feeds, or I keep like figuring out, because once you get into different like niches and stuff in Pittsburgh, you start seeing different people's faces and you're like, who the fuck is this person? And you want to talk to them. So I'll have that set list, and then more people will start hitting you up once their friends do it, or like an artist does it and their friend who's an artist will be like, oh, I'm going to hit them up and say I want to do the podcast. And something I've had to learn recently is just like saying I'll let you know or no, because at first I would just always say yes because dude, I'm not a dick. Like, I'm not fucking someone who thinks that I have this huge platform where I'm like, let me know what you have to come on. So when I say no, I would be so in my head. But then that's when, like, I was talking to Danielle, and she was just kind of saying, like, well, why are you doing this for other people? Because at the end of the day, like, you're not even doing them a favor, because you're going into it with, like, a little bit of resentment because you, like, didn't set it up naturally. She's like, let them know, like, hey, we're booked for at least a month because we are. I'll check out your stuff, and I'll hit you up. And after a while, they're not going to keep pressing you. But dude, I'm an overthinker. Like for the rest of the time, as soon as I say no to someone, I'm in my head like, well, they're going down town hall saying Jeff's a piece of shit, saying no. You know, that was a hard balance. But I think now naturally, it's just more of I like that I got that advice, because now I can just be like, I'll let you know, and if it naturally comes up, I feel like shit will happen.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny, and so I'm always happy, you know, when people reach out to be on the show.
Yeah.
But it's hard because it's happened multiple times where somebody comes on the show that I don't know. And once they get here, it's very clear that they have no idea what the show is.
Yeah, they haven't watched any of it.
Yeah, you know, they just want to be on a podcast. And I respect the hustle as a fellow creator, but it does create that resentment, you know. And the hard thing about it that makes it even more difficult is that I've had some episodes with people that I've never met that have been great. Like I've made awesome friends with people like that just hit me up out of nowhere
that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
You're going out to dinner where you're like, what the fuck?
So like, it's hard for me to want to say no to everybody, but time is very limited. You know, it's like, there's only 50 something weeks in a year. And if I'm doing 1 episode a week, if I'm lucky, and I got, you know, 5 people hit me up in a week, it's like, this is impossible to manage. Literally. So I'm always excited when people like you pop up that have a show that's very similar to mine, because if somebody has been on your show already that I don't know, I don't even bother. Because it's like, we're going to have the same conversation. You've already done this with Jeff. And like, feel free to do the vice versa.
Yeah, I hope not though. Yeah, but it is funny because we are just trying to have like just a creative conversation just of why the fuck they do that. But it is funny, and I hope I'm like, fuck, I'm going to run past some people like, who you having on next, just so we can laugh. But there has been times like me, you, and Eric McKenna have all had like the same episode on a Monday. Yeah. And we all drop on Monday. So that's the other thing. We both drop on Mondays, and there has been a Monday like where I think it was like God Hates Unicorns or something, where you both dropped to the same exact day. And it's just one of those things where it's like you said, it's so similar, but then again, it's different, because I feel like the demographic that you're in is that I'm the past 2 to 3 years I've been in the Pittsburgh scene with mainly comedy, just getting on music. You've been in the Pittsburgh scene and you have a lot of people who have friends that own companies. So you're on a different realm. I would like to say that like I'm the cool like younger brother who like is kind of doing the thing, and then you're the podcast I feel like is kind of setting the standard, you know. So I feel like it has some way to go, but I would just never want you to see that I had someone on and be like, fuck, because I definitely see a big enough difference. But it is funny that you said that.
I was making a yuck. Yeah, you know, I'm not a comedian. I'm not a comedian. Well, no, yeah. But I'll do it for the yucks.
One thing I did want to say though is that it is funny when you have someone on, and I had someone come on and they said like, yeah, the Face podcast, that's sick. So when's your first episode coming out? And I was like, I'm on episode like 30, dude. And then you'll drop the episode, they won't post about it. And then like a month later, they'll do like one picture. And I'm like, well, why'd you hit me up about that? Like, that's another thing where a lot of people will hit you up to do the podcast. And then after, we'll just give the little to zero, like, thanks for doing it, or even like promotion to where that taught me with my energy, where it's like, well, that's exactly why you can't say yes to everyone. You just have little like fire burnings to where it's like, I know you might say podcast, but for most people that edit it, you put a lot of hours into it. And when you're doing that and you're setting up stuff for people and they kind of just like blow you off, it's like, well, this is why I kind of like to keep it my own little thing.
Well, I think that's the problem with dealing with like up and coming artists. And I've gone through this, and a big part of why I started a podcast was because the first podcast I was ever on was terrible. Not because of the host, but because of me. I was not good at talking to people. And after they posted it, I was almost like embarrassed to share it because I felt like it was a poor representation of myself. Yeah. In hindsight, it was probably totally fine and I'm just overthinking. But again, we're artists. It's what we do. And I think that sometimes when you have these people on, I've learned to really empathize with a lot of the people that come on my show have never been in a situation like this, especially when I had the studio, because it was like kind of more professional looking, like you're coming to a building and there's lights and cameras and microphones, and it's like, it could be a lot for people, especially people that are hitting me up that don't look at what they're doing and they don't even realize it's a video podcast. That's happened multiple times where, you know, we're supposed to start at 2:00, but we don't end up starting till 2:45 because they're in the bathroom fixing makeup and doing things. They didn't think it was a video podcast. It's like, well, you hit me up. Yeah. How did you find out about this if you missed the video? But I'm getting off track. What the main point I'm trying to make is like, a lot of people have never done anything like this before. So you kind of have to understand that like maybe they don't know how to promote it properly. Then like, I don't know. I can empathize with it to some degree, but I'm creeping up on episode 400 of my show. And as much as I validate and support young and upcoming talent, there gets to a point where I'm kind of like, I think I'm done talking to people that like don't know what they're doing or working with people that aren't going to help me build. Because I wonder if I wouldn't have put so much time helping others and like being more selfish, would I be better off? Like that's some deep shit, not to go down a dark rabbit hole, but it's like a question that I do ask myself a lot.
Where it is one of those things where it's like you're in a dead end job working at a place where you know you're comfortable, and then years go by and you're like, damn, if I would have just like left and challenged myself, where would I have been?
Sure.
And you get a lot of that feeling when you're doing it, you know, like you said, once a week, you just try to put it out. And sometimes like I'm happy now to where once I had a break, I did like a bunch in a row so I could kind of pick and choose which ones I did. But early on, like you're just trying to get an episode in that week. And that's when you cannot get the best thing. And that's one of those things where for each podcast, you obviously get anxious, but I'm like, dude, you're lucky to do this. You're doing this because you choose to do this. So like, if you're putting this out and you just are just willing to put out an episode, like there was only one Monday I missed because it was like, it wasn't a good episode. I was rushing shit and it was just me talking. And I'm like, this isn't even a representation of like what I want to put out. And it was a lot of what you said, where you're just overthinking. We're like, who am I even doing this for at this point? Where it kind of made me switch kind of what I wanted my angle to be. And then looking at podcasts like yours and like McKenna's and just a lot of people like my friend, Mike Seidel, who has Greenfield's Finest too. Like he found a way to really incorporate himself into his podcast. Like when I listen to it, it's literally Mike when I see him in person. And that's so hard to do with like social media. Like I know I'm a young kid and it should come natural for me to be able to like put myself on the internet, but I feel awkward as fuck. Even like out to dinner, lifting my phone up for a selfie, I just hear someone going, loser. So I've never been the selfie guy. I've always been the guy in the corner, and I'm like, look at the confidence of this selfie taker. Like, I do not have it. And so that's where like putting myself and doing a pre-recorded intro, I've tried it and I've deleted it because I'm like, I sound like the KDKA news host. Like, today we have, what the fuck am I doing? You know?
Yeah. I've definitely caught myself having my like podcast voice, and it's funny when like people call me on it in person, like friends and shit. But it's like, again, it's like, you know, it's showbiz, baby. You got to give them a little bit of something, right? And like as a fellow performer, you know, with your stand up and things like that, do you feel like when you're on stage doing comedy that like you have the same exact demeanor that you have in your day to day, or do you feel like it's like elevated slightly? Yeah,
you have to hype it up. I mean, you literally just have to. Well, and it's the energy and nerves of going on stage. But there's like, no, man, you can't. Because on a day-to-day basis, I'm pretty fucking mellow and boring. Like,
totally.
I'm not really even doing that. And most of the jokes are in my head to where I'm like, it's not like I'm saying them out loud with like yuck 'em ups. Like when I'm hanging out with my friends, that's probably whenever I feel like I'm more like high school Jeff, to where you'll see some stand-up. But when you go on stage, you have to add like a little bit of charisma, but it learned a lot to where when I first started, I thought like it was energy, but instead it's like, no, you just have to seem like you like the joke. Like you're excited to say it. And there was a huge difference from like forced energy that's like cringy as fuck versus me just like happy smiling. Cause you know, when someone has a good joke or your friend sees something, like someone walks past in the mall and you and your friends look at each other and he's already smiling, you just get excited to hear like what he's going to say, you know?
Sure.
And that's something where I had to learn on stage, where I just had to like go up there excited and with a little bit of like that. And that's where I like going up and hitting them with like a quick one-liner. Cause that's the biggest thing with going on stage is as soon as you get the first laugh, it's just like, all right, here we go. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. You can take off the belt and you're like, now I'm comfortable. But until then, it's like you're walking into a high school now, and I'd get judged every second.
Yeah, I think that there's an interesting thing that happens when, you know, you're on stage and you are coming from a more introverted background, where like it takes a long time to learn how to like generate an authentic presence on a stage, because it's like tapping into something that you're not used to, much like that, like the selfie taker.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but I also like don't want to be that person all the time, but I want to be able to harness that energy when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because I hate sometimes whenever like, you know, maybe sometimes I'm around friends and like we get into a conversation. You know, I have people be like, oh, what is this, a fucking podcast now? Yeah. And like, it's like, I don't want people to expect me to always have some like deep thing to say about whatever we're talking about. Yeah. Maybe in the same way where like, you might not like, I'm sure there are people that are like, so tell me a joke, or like, they're always expecting you maybe to be funny in one way or another. Yeah. And it's like, these are like separating two different, like finding that balance between who I am as a person and what I do creatively. Mm-hmm. And like, obviously it's tied together.
Yeah.
But that's like all looping back around to like the beginning of this conversation and talking about like that roller coaster podcast with Brittany Chantel. It's like, you know, Brittany Chantel is somebody that certainly has a lot to say about a lot of things. And I think it was really cool to record that episode, because I think a lot of people, you know, are expecting to hear, you know, more deep stories and maybe more like social and politically conscious things coming from Brittany, and all that stuff's great to talk about, but it's fun to like, you know, kind of push that to the side for a bit and just be like normal and kind of like boring and lame, but great. You know? Yeah,
because you never see both sides. It's like you only see like the extreme. There's no middle ground for like what you know as people until you actually meet them. And that Brittany episode just made it seem like it's almost like you just set up like that Logitech camera like I would in high school, and you just had it recording while you and your friends are just fucking around in the room. You know? Like you guys are just watching videos. And yeah, man, I think that's the ultimate goal. People just want to hear a cool conversation. Like it was one of the funniest pictures when I first started listening to podcasts, where it's like a picture of a lady on a bench, and on the bench it's like a picture of like three girls talking and she's laughing with them. It's like how you feel when you're listening to the podcast. Because you literally will be like, haha, and look in your car and you're in traffic and you're just like, oh shit.
So, you know, Jeff, outside of the podcast and outside of your stand-up, who or what is a Jeff Fieldhouse?
Like a Pokemon? Like what? I'm not an NFT, damn it.
If you were an item on a fast food menu, what would you be?
Well, now you're just going to have me picking what I'd want in a fast food menu if I could create my own burger, which I have thought about it.
Okay.
So I think it'd be a burger.
Okay.
Medium to medium well.
The Fieldhouse. That sounds good.
Definitely the Fieldhouse. I mean, you said it, and it's already named after most like college sports buildings. So it's pretty cool, which I didn't know until late. But no, if I had to pick a sandwich, it would be a burger. Be jalapenos, applewood bacon, buffalo cheddar cheese, and you just have to go with a mango habanero jam.
Okay. Now, do you want this to be like just a burger, or do you want to do like the Fieldhouse meal? Like, what would the side be?
I feel like you have to do... I feel like just the burger, because a lot of the times, most people, when you see meals, and I go to the place where it's like the Mac Daddy, it's $20. It's $14.99. It rounds up to $20. Let's get the burger as a starter. You always know the side hitters are there. You know, I want it to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So outside of everything that you do, you enjoy burgers.
Yeah.
What else are you into?
I really like biking. Which
okay.
It was the start of quarantine once like stand up stopped and all that, which dude, it was wild because like I was doing an all art show every month with my friend Ty.
Yeah.
And then I just got into my first comedy festival here in Pittsburgh. And like there's levels, especially when you're an artist, where like you put little things on your belt notch. Like when you're starting to do it in your first comedy festival, especially in your own like where you grew up, is definitely a huge notch. And it was like the week that was happening, COVID happened. So all that canceled. The all art show got canceled. The podcast, we had to go on Zoom. So that was like, everything was taken away. And I realized like, dude, what the fuck do I like? Because I would get off work, I would instantly go to an open mic. And if not an open mic, I would schedule a podcast for that night. I would hang out with my girlfriend the other nights. And then on the weekend, I would work as a server. And then I would have a show that night. So it's like, once all that was taken away, I literally felt like a little kid where it's just like, what do I do besides Xbox? Like besides like my machine of creating that. And so I wanted to figure something out, and I started biking, and I realized I lived right by like a trail that takes you right into downtown.
Yeah.
And as a kid, like driving into downtown or like going into South Side, my mom and dad are like, that's going to take 45 fucking minutes. We're not going there. So it's not like, it's not, I never went to that part of town. So me on a bike that I can reach all these spots I've never been, I'm like, what the fuck? And you feel like you're 6 again, dude. I don't know what about a bike and just riding downtown. And it really was good, like therapy, you know, because so many times I would put on a podcast and just do a bunch of other shit, but I didn't like having headphones in. So it would be like 2 hours of just me like talking to your brain, which for a person with depression and anxiety, it's just like, oh yeah, do I just want to be in a room with my brain for like 2 hours while on a bike? That's going to ruin the bike ride. I need to toss on music, but it really like helped a lot. And what's made me like get into therapy. And I used to go to therapy when I was in high school, and I've always wanted to. It was one of those things with stand up. I was like, I won't have the time for this, but it really made me incorporate the time where I was like, oh, if I can go biking, if I can go to these open mics, I can do an hour therapy session to start talking about some of these shit. And it really like, I wasn't happy about the pause, but I am happy about something that the pause shined a light on, you know, which it's just like, oh, I was like using comedy and using the podcast almost as like my outlet for the therapy and depression, when I should be using that as like an opposite. It should be like almost like a Gatorade. I shouldn't be using it just to feel good and even out, you know? And then after a while, I feel like that's how you resent it. That's why I was doing 3 podcasts a week. That's why I was doing all the open mics, and at a point not having as fun as I could have. And now that like, I feel like my cup is full personally, going back to stand up. I did a show recently, and I was in the green room, not worrying about other people talking shit on me, not like doing all these other things that were fighting myself. And I was actually able to enjoy the moment. So I was like, holy fuck. So yeah, like in a roundabout way, biking and like, a little bit of meditation. I'll say like before bed, I'll do it. I always fall asleep, but that's something I do need to get better at. But I feel like biking is my meditation. I feel like meditation is just something where if you can just shut everything off and focus on a thought or that, I feel like that's like my type of meditation, you know?
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense to me because it's a very, it's a very like, you know, yang to the yin of what the rest of your life is, which, you know, doing the podcast, entertainment, in general, it could be very chaotic. It requires a lot of interaction with other people, a lot of noise and static, and there's a lot of things going on. So it's interesting that, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is like, well, what else are you into? It's like, oh, I just fucking off by myself on my bike and just kind of, getting lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
In terms of getting into the comedy scene, because I haven't had very many comedians on the podcast, what was it like, or what's it been like in terms of like interacting with other comedians? Because I can never like it seems from an outsider's perspective that like it is unbelievably cliquey, like so much more cliquey than any music scene I've ever been involved in. But maybe that's just because, again, I'm an outsider and maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
What's it like getting into a local comedy scene, at least in Pittsburgh?
Well, I'll answer the cliquey part first, just because I have always compared it to with music scenes, because I went to film school and that's where I started stand-up, and I would record a lot of music videos for rappers, and I would start doing stand-up shows with the music shows to like try stand-up. And that's where I got to see how cliquey music was. But I think what separates stand-up from being more cliquey than music is at the end of the day, a lot of musicians need the other musician for like a studio or for a feature or for a friend that they have, when a lot of stand-up is just you showing up to the show and reaching out to the booker. So I feel like they cut that fake fat niceness because you don't need a lot of those other outside sources.
That's very fucking interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah.
And I think that's why it's more of a lone wolf thing. But with music, you can't really like burn that many bridges. But with stand-up, there's a lot of people. There was a comedy club called Burning Bridges in Pittsburgh, which is sick. But yeah, it's one of those things where you can't burn that many bridges. But in stand-up, there's a lot of guys that burn bridges, but funny's funny and they'll book you if you can bring it out. But with music, it's different. But in the scene, I would say it's like this, because I started stand-up 6 years ago in Florida when I went to film school, and no one knew me. It was awesome because I got to like eat a bag of dicks for like 3 years. And then 3 years ago, I came back to Pittsburgh, and that's when I started doing it here. And I was lucky enough to have like a solid 5 minutes to where whenever I'd go to an open mic, I was new, but I was also funny. So it was very like cliquey. People didn't talk to me, but as soon as you are like at a good open mic and you have a few good jokes and someone's like, hey, you're funny, and you get introduced to someone else, I feel like that's when the change starts happening. I feel like that's with everything though. Like when you play in a sports team, you take a good shot. They're like, hey, what's up, man? You want to go out with the team after? It's just one of those things where you kind of have to prove yourself because there's just so much of it, Yeah. But it's hard at first because your ego will get shattered. Like, for example, I had Derek Minto on. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, he's been on my show too.
Derek's awesome. But my first encounter with Derek, so when I first moved back to Pittsburgh, I really didn't have a place to stay. I was staying with Danielle's mom because I just wanted to get out of Florida and I wanted to start comedy here. And I was staying at like with her mom, and then I would stay up Slippery Rock with her on the weekends. And so it was just hard to come down for open mics because I'm staying up Slippery Rock and I wasn't really going that much. And then I saw there was a Pittsburgh comedy competition, and I applied, didn't hear anything. And then like randomly on a Friday, they said, the competition's tonight. Someone dropped out. Do you want to go in? I was like, fuck yeah. So I did the competition, and the hosts were like a couple local comics, and I did well. I placed third. It was a couple different positions, but it was within like 30 people. So it was cool. And from that, in the green rooms, I got to like meet more comics, and they're like, oh, you should come to Hambones. Oh, you should go to Papa D's. Like kind of going through there. So it gave me some confidence. And like a week later, I go to Hambones, and it's a Monday night, and it's like Derek and all of like the comics in the scene that are like doing it, that have shows to where you just don't want to look like a schmuck in front of them. And I walked in and I like go to sign up, and Derek just turns around, and Derek has a big voice, and he's just like, oh, look, it's the kid that only does competitions. And dude, when I tell you my dick turtle shelled into my body, like Hambones is small already, dude. And like everyone in the room just like looks, and that's your first impression. Like that's what you're thinking. You're talking cliquey, like competition kid. And I'm just like, and the reason why I hurt is like, he's not wrong. I wasn't going to mics, and I did do a competition, and I think that's why it hurt the most. And I was like, fuck you in the moment. And like one of the guys that was hosting the competition, John Dick Winters, was there, and he was just like, no, man, he's a cool kid. And I signed up on the list. And from that night on, once I started coming out to the mics and I booked more, me and Derek, we laughed about it because it was a really funny thing. But he was like, yeah, man, it's one of those things in comedy. Like, you had a young face, you did a competition, you're walking in all confident. He's like, I just wanted to put you down a peg.
Yeah.
But I honestly kind of needed it because it really did. That, like, that's something in Florida that I had a lot, to where like my first open mic went horrible. And as a joke on stage, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go kill myself after this. And like a guy in the bar goes, you definitely should. And like, dude, I'm just sitting in my car crying as like a 19-year-old, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what are you doing? And then to have that as like my first moment back in Hambones. But I think it showed that I liked what I was doing and I wanted to do it because I kept coming back and it went well. But it's just one of those things where it happens all the time. And that's where the name of the podcast, The Babyface Assassin, like, with starting comedy young and with hanging out with older people all the time, it would just always be that thing where it would be the baby face so they judge. And I would just have to kind of like assassinate all that bullshit to make it through like into all that shit. And it just keeps following me. But it ends up making like some of the best friendships because you kind of do break that bullshit.
You know, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you've been able to articulate that in a much better way than anybody else I've ever asked that question to. And maybe it is just because like you're like still relatively young compared to other people I've talked to about this. Cause like I've had people like John Dick Winters has been on the show and Derek Minto's been on the show and Dave Bracey's been on the show. And like all of those people have already been doing comedy for like well over a decade at the time when I talked to them. So like they don't give a shit about answering questions like that.
Yeah.
But like I totally get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And I almost wish there was some of that in the local music scene. It's kind of like they give a shit about making sure the talent is worthy of the stage time. Whereas in local music scenes, everybody's kind of that fake nice to each other because everybody, like you said so eloquently, everybody in the music scene does sometimes need something from somebody else because like people in the music scene, especially in Pittsburgh, are all very nice to each other and they'll go out of their way to help each other, which is great.
Yeah.
But if at the end of the day you have mediocre shows because the talent is just not curated accordingly, then you're not going to be able to build a scene of genuine fans because when you get people out to a show, it'd be like, you know, if you curate a comedy show with a bunch of whatever comedians and you invite everybody that you know out and you're like, this is my representation of local comedy. You don't want to do that, right? Like you want it to be the best that you can. So all of the people are like, you know, you're giving the crowd a good show that they want to tell their friends about and come back to. Yeah. That doesn't happen in the local music scene as much.
Yeah, it's a weird middle ground. I feel like it's starting to get a little bit better, but it's so, I don't know.
But you got to give people chances too and give people that time to grow. Like as a stand-up comedian, I feel like you need to have stage time outside of like open mic nights to like grow and get validation and introduce yourself to the actual community. And that's the same thing with bands. But I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, dude.
No. I was just saying exactly what you were saying with the music thing. But I don't know, because right now, that's another thing where I really wanted to, I've always liked music and I would always mess around, but I never saw myself as like an artist where like singing or rapping, but I've always messed around with beats and stuff. But I really, once I found out about like Rick Rubin, to where he really was like a curator in a room where he would like curate a playlist. And even recently with Brockhampton's new album, like they played him the first 3 songs and he was like, if you change that order, you were doing yourself a disservice. And little things like that. And even growing up, I would listen to music and I would set up my own playlist on iTunes of how I'd want the album to go of an album and stuff.
Sure.
And I just kept putting myself in a box where like, I'm meeting these musicians, I'm getting these resources, I'm doing an all art show. And I was like, I would love to put together like how Tree J would do those 420 tapes. Like every 420, Tree J from Most Dope, he would get like Mac Miller, Hardo, all these local producers to do these 420 tapes where like, dude, you're hearing Hardo and Mac on a song when they usually went in a line because like with the music thing, you have to reach a status, and it brought a lot of Pittsburgh artists together. And I was like, I have these resources, but I didn't want to jump in the music scene because I just like, I was putting myself in a box. But then people like Donald Glover who like did stand up and then jumped into music, I feel like it's all emotions, and like as long as you're genuine and you have like a real drive to it, people can sniff that out. So why not try it? And with people in the music scene being so nice, like I started to put together like a Babyface tape that I'm dropping on Christmas for my birthday. And it's so cool because like 2 artists now, I rented the studio time, they came, offered them money, they said no, did the verse for free, shout out the song, and then today a kid hit me up, he's like, come down to ID Labs, I'll record it with you, we'll do this song. His friend texts me, he's like, hey, who all do you want on the list? I have some producers that can send you beats. People are just sending beats for free and it's naturally happening. And I was like, well, if I wouldn't have ever asked or just put myself out there, and it shows the niceness of the music scene to where it could be good, where something like you want to make something, but also in the other sense, I'm like, well, fuck, I need to see who exactly, and the people that have hit me up are my genuine friends, but I just need to see who exactly hits up after, because then with all art, I'm just doing this for myself because I just want to create my own playlist. And then I've already had people hit me up who are like, dude, we should do like these ciphers, or we should do these things with it. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to get in the music scene like that. Like if I would drop one of these tapes once a year, that's my goal, just to dip into the music scene. But meeting people like you, who your podcast kind of talks to everyone, it's been a huge blessing, because I've had this idea for like 2 years, and now like 2 songs are recording on it. And it's really a tribute to like you guys who have always just kind of like, I'm going to interview whoever the fuck, why would I? And that non-give a shit where I'm like, fuck, dude, giving a shit is literally just is what's stopping me most of the time, you know?
Yeah. I think that's awesome that you're, taking that time to just do whatever you feel like doing, and like not allowing yourself to think that it's any more complicated than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that hangs a lot of people up is that it's really easy for, like starting a podcast. Like so many people have asked me about starting a podcast, and I don't know if I just give terrible advice or what, but I feel like pretty much none of them have ever actually done it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't need much, I'm always like, do you have a computer? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, you have the most expensive thing.
Yeah.
Get a cheap mic or 2 if you want to get fancy.
Yeah. And
you could there's programs you can download for free. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but you actually want to do it, you could do it. And I think that that's like the most invaluable thing that a lot of people overlook. It's like, it's not so much about like, what do you need to do a podcast, or what do you need to make a mixtape, or what do you need to start comedy, outside of just like, you have to actually like want to do it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people have an idea for something that seems like it would be fun if it could just happen.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like you actually have to like take time and do things. Yeah. And it's cool that like you're able to, organize your life in a way where you can do so many different things, but you still make time for it. And you seem to have like a very level head about it.
Well, thank you. No, it's because it kind of happens naturally with a lot of the progression of the shit, and it works out. And it's just because I waited. I was like, growing up, I was the worst with patience, dude. Like with everything, I was just like, I want it now. I want to do this now. And that's something so hard when you're a creative. You have all these thoughts, and you're like, well, I'll just make it now. And then you see how shitty just making it now is, and like the importance of like planting a seed, and then like 4 months later being like, wow, I had 4 months to like water that shit and really give it the exact amount of light it needed. And now it's like this dope shit. And while that was being watered, my foundation is already growing something else, instead of like rushing into something, putting a hold on production and starting this new idea, because I have 30 of them a day. So why would I hold everything else? If it breaks through the surface, I feel like that's when you should do it. And then if it happens naturally, like I've been trying to book studio sessions for like months on months on months. And then finally this studio, Wavy Studios, hits me up and they're like, hey, we love the podcast. We'd love to work out a way to collab with you. And I was like, can I record my tape here? And they're like, we'd love to. And as soon as I got there, they're talking about what they like about the podcast. They have like a huge living room. You go downstairs. It's this huge photo shoot room. They have a separate podcast room. They have a production room. And they're like, yeah, if you ever want to do events or hangouts here. And it's like, thank goodness I waited, because you have genuine people to where I can help them by bringing my artists there, and then they'll probably start recording there, and then they can help me with this. And it's just like, that's exactly why you don't fucking rush into shit no matter how bad you want to, because life will have a funny way of being like, get the back, like get over there, dude, Totally. One of the things that is, it's kind of a benefit of doing a lot of different things, is that as a result for me, and maybe you can relate with this, all of my things are able to have time to kind of grow, because I'm doing so much that like I don't have a choice but to sometimes let things kind of like chill on the back burner for a couple weeks. And it's like, I'm always thinking about it, but there's always like too many things for it to always have my focus. So whenever I loop back around to it, it's like there's always a clarity, instead of like being hyper focused on only like a small set of things. And like, I get distracted easily, but I think it works to my advantage in the long run. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
With the podcast, in terms of like a a long-term goal? You know, is there any sort of like bigger picture that you're hoping to accomplish with the podcast? Or is it much like me where it's like, this is just a creative vessel to continue to meet people in the city and like perfect a craft?
Yeah. I would say at first I really wanted to just get good at podcasting and interviewing, because growing up I just loved like interviews, and especially Howard Stern. Like once I was able to watch YouTube, I would listen to like him and Opie and Anthony, because they just had like the most genuine dialogue, to where the people that came on their show were already fans of them. So they didn't want to let down the people listening. And that's how he could get away with asking like real shit. Like, why were you there last week and not with this person?
Yeah.
And they have to answer. And he's like, what, are you going to be a phony and not answer this? And it like, I'm sitting there as a kid, like, how is he saying this, dude? Like, this is real shit. And I was just like, dude, I just want to make a podcast to where everyone can hear me talk about, like, I don't only talk about dick jokes, but a lot of time when I started the podcast, it was a lot of dick jokes. So you can think dick jokes and stuff like that's funny. And my stand-up is a lot like funnier, but I also want to have another side of like all the things I like, you know? So if someone actually fucks with my stand-up, they see this and it's like the Britney episode. It's like, oh, he likes roller coasters, and you can actually create something. But it's just so funny how like earlier you said we were similar, because like my biggest dream, and I was talking to my friend Ernie B, who owns the barbershop. In his barbershop, he has like a little stage in the corner. And like when I would see Howard do the concerts, I was like, dude, my dream setup is to literally have like an interview room and then a stage over there to do like, because I do music breaks every episode. Imagine having artists come by each week and we just pre-record music breaks, or just have them there, or like have a live episode with that stuff. So like that would be my dream, is to basically like keep that going to where I can promote people, or it's just like me talking with comics, but then also keep the music thing going. Cause like the all art show that I do with my friend Ty, it's 3 comedians and then 2 bands close out the show. And that's where I got to have fun doing that. So I just want to like keep being able to do that, and then maybe do like a type of festival, you know, to where I could like do a mini local thing with a lot of artists and stuff. Like, I just think the podcast is just such a good way there. It's like, it keeps putting me in the directions of things and people, to where it's like, I would have just been in a stand-up lane. So I don't know. I just look at the podcast as like, it's weird. It's like my fantasy factory of like all the things I fuck with and like, and if I see a person, I'm so shy I won't go up and talk to them. But with the podcast, I can like talk to people.
Sure.
It's sick.
Sure. I can definitely relate with that. Getting old is weird. Being an adult is weird. Making friends as an adult is very strange.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier if you have like a vessel like this, because instead of like, and maybe not, it wouldn't be weird, but like, you know, we had never really met in person before. Yeah, no. And if you just like hit me up like, hey, like, you know, like, hey, yeah, I want to grab some coffee. You want to come over to my house, just hang out? Be like, who the fuck is, like, what is this?
You know, I wasn't sliding in, which nothing against that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it is hard, dude, especially just reaching out and saying want to chill. Even with like artists that I do meet on the podcast after, where you'll see it end and they're like, all right, cool. And they'll get their keys and leave. And other guests, like even with you and your girl, you guys stayed after for like another 5 to 10 minutes, and we just talked about shit and we're just messing around. And that's where you're just like, okay, that's where I take it. It's just like, all right, that's when I'll hit them up later and say, I want to go on your podcast or talk. Like if at the end of mine, we're still talking and it kind of doesn't shut off, I'm like, all right, this is how it is. But besides that, dude, no, I was truly wondering how people do it if you don't like find a hobby. And that's why hobbies are great, you know, because you at least like section into it, like, all right, these are what these people like. You know, it's funny, but you're almost like a little kid where it's just like, all right, who's wearing a blue shirt? I have a blue shirt. And you're just kind of like searching for it, you know?
Sure. It's so interesting and really cool, because there are a lot of friends that I've made from the podcast and from the music scene and stuff over the years. And it's cool, like just being able to like hang out with them, not at a show, not on a podcast, like just like whatever, like, you know, go get sushi, go ride a roller coaster, whatever the hell it is. And I really value that stuff. And I think that when I was a little bit younger, maybe I took it for granted. And now like I almost prefer that stuff. It's like at a point now, like especially with the band stuff, where like we'll get asked to play a show sometimes. And I'm like asking myself, like, why are we going to play the show? And I've talked about this before with other guests, and I don't know if you can relate with this as a stand-up, because it's not as difficult to do a stand-up show as it is for a band to drag gear across town.
Yeah, dude.
But it's like, if all we want to do, it's like, why are we playing the show? Oh, because we'll get to see everybody. It's like, well, why do we have to carry all of our heavy ass shit across town? Why don't we just hang out? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love playing, but at the same time, it's like asking myself, why are we doing this particular thing? And if it is just because we all want to hang out and chill, then like, let's just do that. You know, like, I don't know if, you know, these people that just saw us play a set a month ago need to see us play the same songs again. I think maybe they'll be okay. And, you know, working as a band on a local level, I think is a lot, it creates a lot less opportunity than I imagine you have as a stand-up, because you could probably find different open mics and it's not a big deal for you to just go somewhere, show up and do 5 to 10 minutes. Like, it's so much of a pain in the ass, especially for a band. And not only it's just like there aren't as many shows, and there are open mics. Yeah. And if you are like that type of an artist, I guess you can take advantage of that. But being in like a band, maybe it's a little bit harder to turn down those shows. Like, I'm saying that you should, because maybe that is the only show that you have an opportunity to play that month. Whereas like with a stand-up, I imagine like doing one show a month probably sounds like a nightmare and completely unsustainable.
It would suck.
Yeah. But that's the case for a lot of bands.
I think that's the funny part too, because you'll hear even during when I started doing the comedy and music shows, is that a lot of the comedians after will see the bands playing and they're just like, they're so lucky, dude. People can have drinks, they can have conversations and listen. Dude, if one word is missed, I'm fucked. Which it's like, it's definitely true, but it's also the frequency of how often we can get up in the crowds too. So I think like that yin yang almost evens out, because your opportunities are less too, and you really got to show out. You got to make sure that while the people are talking, they have to listen for you to get rebooked and start getting more traction too. So as much as people like to say it's easier, I think it's like it's all in a different facet. You really can't compare. It's like orange and apples, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like easier from an execution standpoint, but it does seem like they're like on if you were gonna write down a list of what you need to do for a metal band to get ready for a metal show versus the list of what you would need, it would be a shorter list. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, dude, 100%. That's why when I heard the comics, they would always be like, look how easy it is. And they're just doing that. And that's why I said it was like apples and oranges, because it's like, you can't compare how easy it is, because also when we're on stage, we're not playing an instrument. Like, we're not doing two things at once, you know? And it's like, it's just one of those things where, going back to the clicky thing, artists always like to be like, well, isn't it easier doing it that way? But then as soon as they start getting some hype, they're like, I wish they'd know how hard it was, you know, like it's always never good. But that's also why I like doing those shows, because then the artists get to talk after and have conversations like this and open up the comedian's mind that it's like semi the same thing. But dude, something about music though, like going up on stage, I don't know if every comedian wants to be a rock star, but there has to be like, it has to be sick at one point just to be able to hear like a dope fucking riff and just to hit a high note. I mean, my shower high note is pretty sick, but like, translating that on stage, I just want to do it once. And I know like karaoke is different, but I'm talking about hiring a band and doing a cover. Okay,
sure.
Like, it just has to be done once, and in front of a concert where I don't think they know I'm coming, because then I don't know how much draw Jeff singing like "Welcome to the Jungle" will bring. But if it is like a concert where they're like, we're letting like a kid who's not feeling the best come on, he's doing this shit, and then let me like jam where the crowd's with it. Come on, dude. That'd be sick. So what is it like? You know, like have you ever taken it in like that?
Yeah. So, you know, when I first started playing shows, my first real show that I ever played, I was in a like electronic project with a buddy of mine, and it was basically, you know, just us with, you know, keyboards and electronics on stage playing like goth clubs and shit like that. And it was cool. It was fun, but we weren't like a band, right? Yeah. We weren't a band. And then from there, I played in like some bands that never played shows, but we had like, you know, we did like band rehearsal and things like that. And the energy was a little different, actually having people playing like instruments and drums and the amps, like the feeling of it, the feeling that you get with like that loud amplification. You can like, you're standing next to a drum set and you can like feel it. Like you don't just hear it, but you feel it on the stage, right? It's a lot different, but I started doing like rap shows, which was just like me and an iPod, and it was still different. But then finally I was in a metal band that played shows. And I remember like the first time like being on a stage and just like looking around and seeing like other people like rocking out as hard as you, and like you feel and hear everything and the lights, and there's people in the, it's like whenever like I was on a stage with a band and like a guitar driven environment, I was like, wow, like I cannot ever not do this again. And anytime I would go back and do like just like a solo hip hop performance, it always felt like something was missing. You know, it was way different. So yeah, I think we got totally lost from the.
As soon as I hear that though, like that's so much collaboration, you know, like each person has to be on the same frequency to create that, you know.
Totally.
I feel like finding a band and doing that's a freeing thing about stand up. And that was a hard part about the podcast is now I'm putting it in other people's hands in the sense of promoting or the sense of like it needing to go well. And recently, like Danielle was producing the podcast for a lot of it, but she started a full-time job now and it's like awesome. It's in her field. And we record on the weekends, but I just felt bad. Like we're both working Monday through Friday, and on her like 2 days off, I was having people come over, and it's just like, at that point, it's more for my art than hers. And it was one of those things where it's like doing it all by yourself. I'd have a lot of people coming over being like, well, it's nice you have help. And all that I took for granted. I was just like, yeah, but I do a lot of it. And it's like, okay, but as soon as she goes to work and you have to set up all the cameras by yourself, and now that I'm doing it with 3 cameras and I'm doing it, it's like, it really made me double down on it. And it also made me realize that like, damn, collaboration is such a art and talent in itself, you know, like being able to let go and trust the other persons and kind of have like a hot potato effect is so hard, dude. Like, how is that something you've always been good at?
Letting go?
Or collaboration in general?
No. No, not at all. I'm an only child.
Okay.
And I had a hard time understanding friendship for a long time. It just didn't make sense to me. And I have a hard time like trusting other people with my art because, you know, throughout high school, you know, you start collaborating with other people on different things. And like, even like, so I had like a joke rap band in high school. You know, when I first started making beats, me and my friends are, you know, writing songs about like big fat titties and robbing people. Nothing that we were doing, you know, we're just idiots in the suburbs making goofy rap songs, but we're fucking 14, 15. Give us a break, right?
Fat titties, was it PHAT?
No, it wasn't. No, it's just big fat titties,
big
straight up, straight up,
titties. Okay.
Straight up.
Respect.
Yeah. And even then I started to notice that like, even though it was like a joke, I started taking it really seriously. And like, I had like an unusual work ethic, and I was really into art then too. And I still am, like drawing and painting and stuff. And like, just being around the people that I was around then, I felt like nobody takes this seriously but me. And like, I had a really hard time finding other people who I could like trust to work with, because I always felt like nobody was on the same page as me, not necessarily skill wise, but just like connection wise.
Yeah.
You know, I had like somebody film a music video for me and it sucked. And I was like, you know, working with this person was a nightmare. So I like bought my own camera and I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to learn how to record myself, because like I can't make those connections and I don't want to trust people with my work. But throughout the years and through playing shows and through doing the podcast, I've met countless like-minded people who I'm very happy to collaborate with now. It's just a matter of it takes time to find those people. And also like when you're starting out, like I don't even know if I knew 100% like who I was or what I was looking for in like somebody else. Because I think that, you know, it was definitely a weird thing. Like when I was starting out making beats, it was like, you know, 1998. It was like pre-Fruity Loops and things like that. So it was like a much weirder thing. There wasn't a whole lot of other people that I could like connect with, and social media didn't really exist at all. We had like AIM, Instant Messenger, right? But that's not like a gateway to the world. That's just a gateway to your friends that you have on there. So like meeting other producers and meeting other people in the scene, like that didn't really happen for years until I finally started like playing shows and finding out like how to play shows. Like even that was so weird. Like we're going to play a show. How do you get a show?
Yeah.
It seems like it's such a strange thing, especially like when we were starting out with that electronic project. It was like such a niche thing. But the friend that I was in that band with, his sister dated a guy that was in the music scene in like a similar genre. So that was like our connect.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Music connects sound a lot like Shroom connects, where it's like, it's my sister's boyfriend's cousin. You know, it's always quality, so you trust it.
Yeah. You know, I think that maybe we already touched on this before, but like, I guess, did you think it was hard to find places to go when you wanted to start doing comedy, or was it just like you already knew and you could just kind of use the internet to find things?
It was hard because when I would look on the internet, when I moved to Pittsburgh, the page ad for the open mics wasn't updated, and there would constantly be comments on it saying, update this page. And I'm like, the dude in the comments, I wanted to comment and be like, put in the comment the update, you know, like, just lead us straight to here, like it would be our steel horse. But no, I would you just call a bar, like I call the Beer Hive, and I'd be like, hey, I saw online you have an open mic, and some bartender, it's like, yeah, fucking Thursday. Well, all right, bye. And they just hang up, and you're already like, that's not inviting. And now, like, I don't know anyone here, and that's another thing when you walk in and just like trying to find the host with the sign-up sheet, or just seeing like a random pen and a paper and being like, I want to sign up on that. It's intimidating, but it's one of those things where it's like, half it's in your head. It was hard until I started doing it, you know? And then once you go into it, you realize like, as soon as you do that first one, you can at least meet one person or just ask the host, like, what are other ones? And if the host isn't too jaded, they'll be like, here are the other ones. Or if they aren't, they're just like, you'll be up next. No one cares. Like you hear a lot of that, especially in Florida, like at a few coffee shops, like, this one guy was like, I booked the best open mic, guys. You got to come down. We went, and every other drink was made with a smoothie machine. So it's just, like in between every joke. We're like, dude, this place fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Like the ambiance was great, but the back was horrible, you know? So it was hard, but in Pittsburgh, like once you find it, dude, that's the cool thing about Pittsburgh, with having like Lawrenceville, with having Southside, you have enough little pockets in Bloomfield where it's like, it's all close enough to where it was cool, because everything in Florida, it would either be like in Boca or Boynton or like South Florida. It's just like you're driving 40 minutes everywhere.
Okay. That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks dick.
The interesting thing about, you know, that idea of like signing up for an open mic night, or people being, it's like, there's so many weird things about this, because it's like, as somebody that wants to sign up, you know, I would have this feeling like, oh, like, I'm walking into a room, there isn't very many people here. Mm-hmm. You would assume that they're probably happy that there's somebody that wants to come and sign up, like somebody new. Yeah. But part of you feels weird about signing up. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip, sometimes you do have people that are kind of grumpy and weird about you signing up. It's like, why the fuck are you doing this?
Oh, yeah. Well, you'd have hosts where you'd sign up and they'd be like, oh, longer night than I expected. And I was like, have a cap? You know, like have a 20-person cutoff?
Yeah,
you know,
weird.
Like, that was one thing I thought, because I was thinking about doing an open mic when I first like came to Pittsburgh, and I was like, I might just do like a 10-person cap, give them all 5 minutes just so it's cool.
That makes sense.
Because a lot of time at Hambones when I first went, it starts at 8. And then I would go on at midnight one night, because it literally 32 comics would sign up and you all get 3 minutes. And so it's just like one after another. But it's just like those rooms where when you first start, you sign up, it feels like it's showbiz, it's theater. Like, oh, this is a mic, I'm going in it. Then the more you go to it, the more you realize that it's like a workout gym. And it's like when you first go to like a Snap Fitness or a 24-hour fitness, you're like, this is sick. Then like your fifth time walking in, you're like, that could get fixed. What the fuck's going on here? I guess I'm using this just to work out, you know, like,
yeah.
So then you're just grateful to have a workout gym. And I think that's where you have to separate it, where you're just like, all right, these are where I'm getting my reps, and these are going to make me super grateful for on the weekend when shows are curated for comedy and on it says paid for like comedians and people are seeing it.
Yeah.
You know?
So there's well, I mean, who knows what a post-COVID world's going to look like, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, there were open mic nights that were like really well attended with a lot of comedians.
And Burning Bridges specifically, Monday night and Thursday night. Thursdays were always the best. But dude, it would be like a packed bar. Like the whole entire room would just be packed where the comedians couldn't sit down or stand. They would just wait in the bar. And dude, it's just so weird. The crowds would just be so hot, and you're like, this is an open mic night, and it's like a wing night, and these people in Lawrenceville were just come in, and you could just tell that they were just like liked comedy, and it was sick. And that just really like Hambones, which ripe. I really hope it comes back. But that was like, it felt like the Cheers for Pittsburgh comedy. Like you walk in, you're comfortable, you see all the comics and you know that it's a good room. Like even when you'd have like 5 to 10 people and it'd be an off night, it was still like a cool off night compared to most like dive bar off nights. You know?
Sure. I think the thing that was cool about the Hambone space was like that separation between the bar and the performance area. So it allows like at least some sort of a divide between the people that care and the people that don't care.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's definitely been some clubs that maybe you've played at as a stand-up and definitely clubs that I've played at as a band where like, you know, they cater to two different crowds. It's like, you know, there's venues in Pittsburgh where like for a band night, right? Like the band and the bar are in the same room, but it's like if somebody's coming to that spot and they don't want to see the band, like they don't have to pay the cover.
Oh.
It's just like, are you here to see the bands or not?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's fine. I get that as a business owner that you want to make the band or the promoter happy and let them, you know, pocket a couple bucks so they can pay the bands out at the end of the night. But you just have this room of, you know, it's like a weird divide of people that just like couldn't care less. And I'm not like a spiritual person. I don't know about like energies and auras and chakras and things like that. Yeah. But if you were ever to make an argument for those things existing, it would be in an environment like that. Because there's a weird feeling in the air that you can't quite put. And I feel like it's easy for me to get in my own head about these things, but I feel like it's something deeper than that. Like there's an actual feeling, energy that is being put out by a bunch of people that like don't want to be in a space, but they're there.
I think it's like it's just respect. The energy that I'm missing is respect. They didn't pay the money to see you, so they're like, why the fuck is he here? I do not have to respect him. And you just are getting this vibe of just like, I don't give a fuck. And that's the hardest part about like creating rooms, because when you first start, you're like, I'll do this bar because like we're getting up, and then you realize like art is the weirdest thing. Like we're all weirdos. We like being in our little basements where we hang out with like 2 or 3 friends. So if we're gonna create this space, it needs to be comfy for the weirdos. You need to make sure that the weirdos are comfy so we can give you guys the best show. So if we're coming into a room that reminds us of high school gym class where all the kids are saying, fuck this dude, it's just not going to be a good vibe, and it's going to be a defensive. That's where you have shows where people start turning on the crowd that paid to not even be there. Or you'll have crowds for those shows to where like performing live is such a fine line between like karaoke and like actual live performance, you know? Cause like, and the difference is like the confidence you have. If you don't have much confidence and you're a new comic or a new musician and people don't know you, they're going to look at you and think it's like karaoke, and they're going to be like, motherfucker, give me the mic. I'll Stevie Nicks it. But if you have confidence and you're sending it, that at least sets a standard. It's like, I'm doing a thing you can't fucking do or you shouldn't be doing, and I prepared for this. And that's something I had to learn, where it's like, come ready for rooms like that so you're not doing something that seems like karaoke that's going to give them the go to try to be like, well, I was funny at my work. And it's like, the people at your work fucking hate you. They laugh just to shut you up. And it's like, it's hard. It's a weird middle ground, but it really is worth separating the both for the art. Because I promise you'll make more money and you'll have more people coming back for the shows. Like 100%.
In terms of like writing, how often are you able to write and perform new material? Because like for like a band, like we need to have like a solid 20-25 minimum. And for like a comedian, it's like a 3 to 5, right? So it's a shorter time frame. But I imagine a lot of the time when you're going to different open mic nights, maybe multiple times a week, like you're working on that same 3 to 5. Yeah. And sometimes in front of like the same group of people a lot. And like when I think about like playing the same 20 minutes worth of material in front of people, it doesn't give me the anxiety as having the same 3 to 5 minute set of jokes in front of people over and over again. What is that experience like? Especially when you first say it and then you go to a mic and you just see their reaction. That's where it taught me to where, I forget what podcast it was on, but they were like, challenge yourself. It was a writing jokes podcast, and they're like, take out a word or switch it, or like do like the beginning or the end, or just like switch out one thing. So I would literally switch out a word. And when I first started, I'd say fuck a lot.
And I would just say that. So I was like, let me take out some fucks and let me switch it out. And one night, if I was at a bar that's a little bit more like dirty, it was like a dive bar, I'd say the fucks. And if not, I'd change it. So that's something that would help keep it interesting, because if you're saying it into a room with many people that aren't there and the rest are just comics, you need to make it fun for yourself at least a little bit. And you like, cause you'll get tired of it. And so when I first came to Pittsburgh, I had a solid 5 minutes where I was doing it for 3 years. I was doing a decent bit of shows before I left, so I was happy with that. So I was happy to go to open mics and do 2 jokes I knew that would work and then try a new one. So that would always be my goal, is like, if I'm going to go to an open mic, I'm going to try to like hone and change a few of the ones that I know I want to work on, but then like slip in 1 or 2 good ones. Because a lot of times I'd come up and I would just try the new ones and you lose the crowd. You're the 15th comic and you suck off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what the fuck? So that's where you'll see a lot of comics do a joke that you may have heard before, but they'll do it a little bit different with some pizzazz. You get their attention with some respect, and then you try a different joke, where it's just one of those things where you have to learn that. But as far as writing material, I'll just jot it down, and then if it's like funny enough, you get excited to go out that night because it's like you get to say it in front of someone and do it. So I don't have like a frequency. A lot of times it will come a lot more often. Like when I was out doing a lot more with shows, it came a lot more often. Like now, I probably in my phone have like 15 jokes that are like premises.
What do you make time to try to focus on writing, or do you just kind of let it come at you? If it's like something in life happens that triggers a potential joke, you just kind of write it down and let it work out that way. And maybe you try to just work it out on stage versus like actually like dedicating time every week to just like sit down and write jokes like by yourself.
I would say that a lot of the time that during the weeks, like if I won't have a show and it's just mics, it's just me jotting and like throwing shit at the chalkboard, and the stage is the chalkboard with open mics. And then like, say if I have a show on Saturday, that's whenever like Wednesday or Thursday, I'm like, all right, I need to sit down and either write out or like organize these jokes so it has some substance and it has some like, and that's whenever I'll like do a writing. But it's not me sitting down and being like, all right, what do I think's funny? It goes a lot back to like the planting the seed thing. Like I'll have the joke and all those little notes right there will just be seeds in my phone. And then once it's like time for me to sit down and like prepared for the show, that's whenever I'll like expand those seeds and kind of figure it out. But yeah, I've just never been a good person where I sit down and I'm like, what's the deal with that? I'll usually just have a few things to where I'm like, dude, that's funny. And I'll put it down on my phone. And then once you go back to it, but a lot of it's in the shower too, where you'll just start like saying the full joke. And like, that's something that's helped me with stand up, is like on the way to shows, I'll say my whole set in the car. I'll say like 2 or 3 times, just so while I'm on stage, it's almost like your brain has like an outline. It's hearing the words. So if I see someone in the crowd, I can like do a freestyle, because like up there, it's already going. Like I already have like the set notes to before. I would have waited like to that day. I'm anxious. I'm writing it down and I'm just trying to remember the order. But now the order is embedded. It's like a school speech. I have the order. So that's when you can kind of like quarterback sneak it a few times and show that you're comfortable. So my writing's weird. I have like an organization writing. It's just like put up on a chalkboard, circle it, and then I'll like try to extract it. But I don't think I've ever like written out a joke. I think I've done it twice whenever the joke's just been too weird. So I have to like fully type it in my phone, because the note would just be like too off the wall. Like, what does that even mean? So
Sure.
I have to like make sure that I fully describe it to yourself. But yeah, there's no really like set in stone way.
Sure. So now, are you still mostly focused on doing like 5-minute sets? Have you expanded beyond?
Yeah.
Where are you at now?
So I've been doing 20-minute sets.
Wow. Hell yeah.
Shows, which is sick. And like before quarantine, I was at a solid, like, I really liked 15 minutes that I had, and I had 5 minutes of like fun where it's not fluffer, but like my other 15 minutes is really good. So if I would put like those newer jokes I'm trying in the middle and then have my end, like I have a solid beginning that I know and it tells you about me, that I like how I do it. I have a middle that's funny, that has like a callback to one of the first jokes I like. And then after that, that's when I can have some fun with the newer jokes. And then I already know what I want my ending to be. I already have that. So like, that's where like the 15 to 20 I'm really comfortable with. And that's where I just want to keep working. Because I feel like once you have like a 15 you're comfortable with, in the next like year or two, then I think that's when like a half an hour can come where that will be like nice. But yeah, I would say like 15 to 20 is what, like when people ask me, can you do a show, how much time? I'll just say 15 to 20.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's interesting to like hear about like how long it really takes to develop those things. And it also
6 years, which is
and it creates like this like insane amount of respect when like you like think about like some other like top tier comedians that are like, here's another 45, 60, 75 minutes. Like every 12 months, every 18 months. It's like, how?
Well, the cool thing about that, I think that if I didn't have a 9 to 5, and like with those comics that are established, which they work their ass off for that, but when you can go to like good clubs where the people are listening for the jokes, you're not doing the thing like we have with the podcast where you're like going to rooms or having guests on that are like fillers, and you're not growing from it. Each set in each room they're going to, they're growing, and they can really use it to be like, hey, I want to practice like a 15, 20 minutes here. Hey, I want to go to these rooms and separate it. And when you have a fan base, you can practice a lot of that. Like a lot of my favorite comedians, I'll notice now, I'll listen to their podcast, and then I saw one like, who was it? I'll have to think of it later, but I listened to his podcast and I saw him live, and he was doing a bit that he was talking about on his podcast. I'm like, oh, he's working it out on this.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like once you have like the rooms and the clubs you can go to, I feel like you can churn it out more because you have like actual gym.
Yeah.
Like, you're at the point where like, how is this guy from Marvel so jacked? It's like he has the right resources to help get him jacked, you know?
Yeah, I've had that feeling sometimes whenever like you like solo, like the comedians like a Bill Burr or a Theo Vaughn who do a lot of episodes where it's just like them talking.
Wild, dude.
And like you're riffing. I'm like, how much of this is going to end up in a special?
Yeah.
You know, like maybe one little tidbit of it will, and like you're just kind of like riffing and recording, and like you're monetizing your brainstorming. Like that's fucking genius.
It's sick, dude.
And it's also really interesting too, like how you were mentioning, like those people just have like resources. It's like once you like start to become like popular and you have money, like you start getting more things for free and you start making more money. It's kind of like, I think once you get to a certain point in any entertainment field where it like becomes easier to get the stage time and get stage time that's good, and to be around people who's like they can all provide something to help elevate you, but like cracking through that ceiling to that point can get really hard. Like me personally, I feel like I've like you ever like press your face like against glass and you're just like, I feel like I've been that. My ceiling, I've been like that on my ceiling for a couple years now. I don't know what to do.
I feel like it's like Willy Wonka. You just got to fucking keep pushing through it, dude.
Yeah.
I'll be your Grandpa Joe. I'll be up there with you. We can get stuck up in the cloud.
I'll tell you, I mean, I'm feeling, I think that the past year has been a really a good way for me to reprioritize what was important to me and what I want to put time and energy into, and like how I want to what's the word? Not diversify. How I want to sure. I'll just say diversify that energy, you know. Yeah. And now that we're slowly things are getting back to a little bit more normal, like I actually have shows booked and things like that. I'm excited to see like what it's going to be like, and I'm hoping that I can maintain that clarity and maintain that level of patience that I've been able to learn and become comfortable with over the past year, because I was so used to like like if I don't have a show this weekend, I better be going to a show. Otherwise I'm not representing the community properly. And I got to do X, Y, and Z. I got to record 3 podcasts. I got to have band practice every other night with every other band. And like, it's too much. It's completely unmanageable. Yeah. In the past year, I didn't do any of that, but I'm fine. I actually feel better in some ways than I had.
Could have been. What,
I feel like
against the glass was, you know, like you pulling yourself so many different ways, nothing was able to like fully bloom, and this is your chance to like the glass was fucking broken, dude. It's kind of sick, you know, like when you get back into it, it's more organized, you know. It's like that thing where when you get pulled over by a cop, the next like 5 to 10 miles, you're 10 and 2, you're looking, you're like, who would merge like that, you know? And then you get a little less grateful when you're driving like a schmuck again. But that's how I feel like a lot of artists are going to go back into the scene where it's going to be 10 and 2. It's going to be cool. Let's try to keep that composure.
Sure.
Let's try to keep that, because the traffic is going to come, you know, it's going to be open lanes, but it's also going to get congested real fucking quick.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. That's very, very, that's sage-like advice.
I talking to my therapist, we just went over that analogy and we're laughing about it, because I was like, I'm so grateful, and she's like 10 and 2, and I was like, oh fuck, that is like such a, you're grateful because you haven't had it. She's like, tell me you're grateful when you're like a year back into it.
Yeah. I do worry about it's really easy to romanticize this idea of like, oh, like people are just going to be very grateful to see live entertainment again, and they're actually going to come out and they're going to support, and like I'm like, maybe for a bit.
Yeah.
But, we're all creatures of habit. And the thing you got to realize is like, when lockdown happened and all of the things that we enjoyed doing were taken away from us, the things that they enjoyed doing were taken away from them too.
Very true.
It's not like they weren't doing nothing. They're going to go, like, they weren't coming to shows before because they were doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And they're going to go back to doing whatever it was they were doing.
And maybe they don't like it. A lot of my friends now, they recently went back to bars and they're like, dude, I kind of like getting a bottle and a few of my friends at my house,
Totally.
Like a lot of people kind of switch to the opposite, more introvert, and they'll go back and they're like, fucking picking up a lot of weird energies tonight,
Yeah, no, there is a thing with live music or like entertainment in terms of, the thing with bars, when you go out and it's like, okay, you're paying 3 to 4 times as much as you probably should for these drinks. You're around your friends, but you're also like cramming for space or a table. You don't really have any control over the music that you can listen to unless you want to pay the jukebox to play the songs that you want to hear. And then like you got to worry about getting home safe and your friends getting home safe or paying for parking and all this stuff. And it's like, why do we work to have these homes that we can host these things in? It's like, it's really strange to like put all this time and energy into something like a house to like not use it to its full
potential. But that also goes back to like people's house being their like little like golem places where like I'm gross, like a lot of people don't have that. But dude, one of my favorite things is like recently within the past year, it's a little over a year now, but having an apartment with my girlfriend, and before living with other people and never having your own space to have them come over. But like one of my like funnest hangs was recently when like a few months ago is when my friend Ty and his girlfriend Sarah came over. And we like ordered pizza, we hung out, we drank, and then we played board games. And it was like genuinely fun as fuck. Like it was like cool. And the board games, we were laughing our ass off because it was like bringing up different shit. And I'm like, dude, this was fun as hell. Like it really brought back that thing like you said, where it's like, I'm at my house, I'm comfortable, like we all live close to each other. It's just like, yeah, I like this vibe a lot better. And I think that's what's going to help me, because that's the other thing with making friends. A lot of other people be like, let's go out this bar to become new friends. And it's like, we're starting off on the wrong spot already, but I feel like more hangs like that, to where like my friend Jake Burkhart, he's always been really good to where every single time we're going somewhere, he's like, I'm bringing this kid. And like, he's been an outsider and we're like, you're bringing him? And a lot of my friends are like, why the fuck are you bringing him? We don't even know him. And he'd come, and after like a couple hangs, we're like, oh, why aren't you bringing him? And he becomes a part of the group. And it's like a really good friend to like picking a new person and bringing them in naturally in spots. And I think that that's like really cool. And it's like, you need to have friends like that because it's hard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adult friending.
Yeah.
Adult friendships are very, very, very complicated.
Could you do like a hitch where you hire someone like a cool Will Smith? I'll be Kevin James.
All right. I think that's a good idea for a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
There we go. So
monetizing everything.
Yeah, monetize everything.
Just put it in me already.
Yeah, that's something that I had to get over too. There was a while when like I was like bringing like cameras and microphones everywhere, because it's like, oh, this could be a thing. And it's like, why? Why? Just like, you could have probably filmed the board game night and it would have been like entertaining content, but you're like pulled out of it. Like you can't just enjoy it.
Thinking of the camera frame.
Exactly.
Is the battery almost dead?
Like, yeah.
No. I look fat. It's like, I can't even enjoy the moment. The camera's not there. I'm eating buff chick dip. When it's there, I'm not eating it. I'm just trying to live my best life.
I feel you, dude. I fucking feel you. So with all of this being said, I feel like I could easily talk to you for another hour.
Yeah.
But we gotta. There's other things in everyone's lives that need the stage time right now.
Yeah.
And I think we've overstayed our welcome, so at the risk of Chappelling it.
Yeah, it's all
let's
good, I didn't light a cig, so at least at least we're good here.
Yeah. We'll pull out. But before we do you have any gigs coming up? You got an all art show coming up, don't you?
Yeah, on the 15th. I have the all art show coming up. I do have an outdoor show, which I can shout out. Thank you for letting me shout this out, by the way.
Of course.
Sorry, guys. It's going to take 2 seconds because, cell phones. But it is on May 8th. Sorry, my phone's bad. So, You can cut all this. So Saturday, May 8th, it's comedy at the Riverwalk. It's an outdoor like stage. It's really cool. That's going to be in McKees Rocks. And the address is Riverwalk Memorial, 319 S Croydon Ave, Newcastle. Check it out. It's like really cool. There's a lot of comics that I know that are like some of my favorite comics. Like you go to open mics, you see a lot of comedians doing the same sets. These comedians, like I get excited to watch their sets because they're really funny. They're really raw. And yeah, I think there's another show at the Comtra Theater coming up as well on the 24th. And then I'm going to Florida to go visit some of my comedian friends. And my sister just had her first kid, so I'm going to go be an Uncle Jeff for a little bit.
Nice.
It's going to be sick. But yeah, so I have 2 comedy shows coming back, which is weird to say with quarantine, but I'm super excited. So yeah, the All Art show is on the 15th. It's me and Ty Danzuzzo at the Mount Troy Inn. The podcast is Babyface Assassin Podcast. Check it out. Please, I'd very much so appreciate it. We shout out a lot of cool artists, have genuine conversations. And yeah, that's about it, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for hitting me up to come on.
Yeah, dude.
It is like one of those things where like you hit me up about coming on the show and it was like, I would much rather talk to you about nothing than other people that I don't know because I at least know you. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Definitely.
Let's do it.
Well, let's grab sushi and have a non-hangout where it's creative.
Yeah, I've done your show. You've done mine.
Let's do real life. Huh?
That's all we need to do. Maybe one day we'll have maybe one day you could do a hot 15.
Yeah.
At one of my gigs or vice versa. We could talk about that later.
Yeah.
But outside of this, yeah. Now's the official start of our friendship.
Perfect. I hope you saw a rainbow like I did in my head when he said that.
If I actually listen to this before I upload it, because sometimes I'll just upload it raw because I don't care.
Yeah.
If I do listen to it, I will edit a rainbow in.
Dude, a SpongeBob friendship rainbow would mean the world to me.
Okay, I will do it. Hopefully I remember.
Yeah, if not, I probably won't, but then when I see it, I'll be real happy. Dope room, dope place. It was nice seeing you, man. Thank you.
Always. And I'll do, fuck the outro. Cool.
Dude, that was sick. Thank you.
Thank you, man.